Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. How has the first half of the year been treating you? Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Yvette from ZMUni Compliance Centre. The topic we are going to share today is fragrance allergens, global regulatory trends, and China compliance. Fragrance allergens have become a major focus of global cosmetic regulation in recent years. In the following time, we will walk through global rules and China's compliance requirements in detail. Okay, now let's get started. First, please take a look at our agenda. We will have four main sections today. Part 1 will explain why fragrance allergens draw worldwide attention. Part 2 sort out allergen rules in major global markets. And Part 3 focuses on core compliance points for cosmetics exported to China. And the last part covers keynotes for perfume notification in China. Now, let's move to part 1, why fragrance allergens are becoming a global regulatory focus. First, take a look at the wide application of fragrance allergens. Fragrances are now just used in perfumes. They can be found across 6 major product categories plus oral care products. These categories cover facial care, body care, hair care, color cosmetics, and daily cleaning products. As fragrances are widely incorporated into nearly all daily chemical products, and the associated allergic risks exist extensively. And why consumers are paying more and more attention to fragrance allergens. First, fragrances have complex components and high allergic risks. According to the European Society of Contact Dermatitis, 35% of cosmetic allergy causes are triggered by fragrance ingredients. Secondly, driven by the trend of full ingredient disclosure, the consumers attach great importance to ingredient transparency and product safety. And thirdly, to adapt to international trade. Major markets keep updating cosmetic regulations, putting forward stricter requirements on fragrance allergens. All these factors make fragrance supervision increasing strict. Here are the latest penalty cases from EU from January to April 2026. The EU and its member states issued 280 batches of cosmetic non-compliance notices via safety gates. Perfume products accounted for the largest number of violations, up to 100 cases. The main problem was the illegal use of restricted fragrance ingredient, Lyro, and this fully shows that non-compliance with fragrance rules will lead to severe market penalties. Let's analyze the root causes for tighter global supervision. First, fragrances are blended with various natural and synthetic aroma chemicals. These components are extremely complicated, so allergic risks cannot be completely removed. And second, authorities, bodies like EU, SCCS continuously update the allergen list based on the long-term scientific research, providing solid evidence for strict regulations. And third, inconsistent rules across countries create non-tariff trade barriers and increase operation costs for enterprise. Therefore, tightening supervision has become an inevitable trend worldwide. Okay, now move to part 2 and take a look at fragrance allergen regulations in major global market. We start with EU, which is the benchmark of global fragrance regulation. And here is the timeline of key EU regulations related to fragrance. The earliest cosmetic directive was issued in 1976. The Seventh Amendment in 2023 laid the foundation for allergen management after the official cosmetic regulation in 2009. The EU kept releasing new regulations in 2017, 2022, and 2023. Each update further improves the control rules for fragrance allergens. Based on latest regulation, the latest core rule is EU Regulation 2023-1545, and it greatly expands the scope of controlled allergens. From the original 24 items, adding another 57. So there is 81 mandatory labeled allergens in total. For labeling threshold, label-on products need to labeling when allergen content exceeds 0.001% when rinse-off products apply the threshold of 0.01%. Besides, the United Kingdom currently adopts exactly the same rules as the EU. The EU has set two critical deadlines for transition, and the first one is 31st July 2026, the market ban date. Any new products that fail to meet the new rules and prohibited from being placed on the market. Enterprises must finish formula adjustment, safety report update, and label revision before this day. And the second deadline is 31st July 2028. All existing non-compliant products must be completely taken off shelves. Enterprises have 2 years to clear inventory, otherwise they will face product withdrawal risks. And next is United States. Its regulation is divided to federal and state levels. At the federal levels, the core law is more CRA. Up to now, FDA has not issued detailed enforcement rules for fragrance allergens. Most enterprises refers to the EU list of 26 allergens, but this is not a mandatory standard. And at the state level, California has stricter requirements. Enterprises need to complete CSCP notification, conduct risk assessment for hazardous ingredients, and full compliance with the Ingredient Transparency Act. Now, let's look at the Canada. The new regulation, SOR 2024-63, regulates cosmetic ingredient disclosure. Its labeling thresholds are consistent with the EU. Canada implements the new rules in 3 phases. Starting from 12th April 2026, all products must label 24 allergens. On 1st August 2026, all new products must follow the 81 allergen list. Until 1st August 2028, all stock products must be fully updated to 81 allergen standards. For South Korea's rules took full effect in 1st January 2020 based on its Cosmetic Act. The labeling thresholds are the same as the EU. South Korea requires labeling for 25 allergens, one more than the traditional EU 24-item list. which is lira. And please note an important difference. The lira is completely banned in the EU, but in South Korea, it only needs labeling instead of being prohibited. Let's summarize the global compliance trends. First, allergen list kept expanding, with more regions adopting 81 allergen standards, and the supervision is getting stricter, forming a full closed-loop management from raw materials to post-market, and non-compliance costs rise sharply. Third, rules vary in different regions, so localized compliance is essential. We also remind you that ASEAN, Japan, and other markets are revising relevant regulations. We suggest the enterprises make preparations in advance to avoid future policy risks. That's all for global market growth. Now let's move to part 3. Key compliance points for cosmetic exported to China on fragrance and allergen management. Okay, now let's take a look at the China major regulation and standards for fragrance, which includes the technical specification for cosmetic safety, rules for cosmetic registration and filing, and the 2021 version of Safety Assessment Guideline. Meanwhile, multiple national industrial inspection and group standards apply to aroma, chemicals, and fragrance testing. Most importantly, all fragrance raw material must comply with China's catalogs of permitted and prohibited cosmetic ingredients. When buying products in China, there are two ways to declare fragrance in formula. If you only write fragrance, we don't need to submit detailed spicy components. But if your label shows the specific allergen components, we must add the explanation in the remark part. And if we declare fragrance together with its single components, we need to provide the full components information from manufacturers and finish safety assessment for each ingredient. In addition, we follow the carryover principle. Allergens brought in by plant extracts or other raw materials apply to the same rules as fragrance allergens. Let's take a look at two practical examples of formula declaration. For case 1, if you declare fragrance as a single raw material, but your product label lists specific allergens, we must note that those allergens in the remark columns of the formula. And take a look at this case 2 for allergens carried over by raw material like bergamot peel oil. We only need to note them in the remark column, and there is no need to declare them as a separate ingredient like this. The key takeaway is always use the remarks column to provide complete allergen information as required. Now, let's move on to fragrance allergen labeling rules. For imported cosmetics, the label consistency principle must be strictly followed. All information on the Chinese label shall be full consistent with that on the original packaging to guarantee the information transparency and accuracy. Besides, please note the standard labeling format. Begin with the phrase contains allergen allergenic components, then list the names of all the ingredients. You can refer to the label shown here. For safety assessment, enterprises shall provide certificates proving fragrance compliance with IFRA or Chinese national standards. And here is an important reminder from NIFDC. The fragrance is a compound raw material, so we cannot use the maximum historical dosage of the general term fragrance in the raw material catalog and assessment evidence. We must assess based on the real fragrance formula and provide valid compliance certificates. Let's take a look at IFRA certificate. This is a core document for fragrance compliance. As shown in the left, a valid certificate covers 4 key points: compliance statements, concentration limits, restricted ingredients, and applicable product categories. On the right, you can see the latest updates. IFRA has launched a public consultation on the 52nd Amendment, which will close on July 12, 2026. Here is a key reminder for the enterprises. Please always prepare the latest version of the IFRA certificate to meet filing requirements. Regarding children's cosmetics, impose stricter requirements on fragrances. For formula, the high sensitization fragrances shall be minimized. If the specific aroma components are declared, complete components data from the manufacturers shall be submitted, along with the explanation for material section and dosage. For safety assessment, the general term fragrance shall not be used as assessment evidence. Valid IFRA or national standard certificates are required. Separate assessment is mandatory for each list aromatic ingredient. And for labeling, once allergen content exceeds 0.001% in leave-on products or 0.01% in rinse-off products, dedicated safety assessment for children shall be completed, and the corresponding allergens shall be marked on label. Regarding the safety assessment, besides using fragrance certificates, we can also apply the TTC assessment method for some fragrance raw material. This method is applicable to substance with a clear chemical structure, low content, and insufficient systematic toxicological study data. And the TTC assessment process involves 4 key steps. First, verify the applicability of the TTC method and exclude the substance that cannot use this approach. Second, screen for DNA reactive mutagens or carcinogens genes to determine the genotoxicity, which will decide the subsequent TTC threshold. And third is calculate the systematic exposure dose using the formula. And fourth, compare the calculated SED value with the corresponding TTC threshold to finally judge the safety risk. We have covered the general compliance rules for fragrance in China. And when we talk about fragrances, the most ironic product is undoubtedly perfume. So let's move to our final section, the key points for perfume filing in China. First, let's look at the China perfume market, which holds enormous market potential. The growth momentum is strong and the development prospects are very promising. The market size reached 25 billion in 2024 and is expected to exceed 51.5 billion by 2029. From a consumer perspective, perfume are the main choices and nearly 30% of consumers purchase perfume for self-enjoyment. New product forms like solid perfume balm are also becoming increasingly popular. When filing perfume products, there are three key testing points to note, which are slightly different from other cosmetics. First, regarding the microbiological test, if the ethanol content of the perfume is 75% or higher, this test can be exempt. Secondly, methanol testing is mandatory. The rules differ based on the alcohol content. If the total content of ethanol and isopropanol is 10% or more, you must submit a methanol test report with the limits set at 2,000 milligrams per kilogram. If the total alcohol content is below 10%, we can still need to conduct a methanol risk assessment and providing the supporting documents. Third, for chemical sunscreen testing, even if your perfume is not marketed as a sunscreen, if its formula contains any chemical UV filters, we must test each added sunscreen ingredient individually. So please pay a close attention to these 3 points to ensure compliance. Okay, that's all for you today. Thank you so much for attending. I hope these insights I shared will be valuable for your work and help you navigate the Chinese market smoothly. If you have the perfume or other products that intend to enter the Chinese market, please feel free to contact me anytime. That concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions or would like to discuss further, please feel free to reach out to us via email or LinkedIn anytime. Thank you.